Mr. Lightstone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My questions today are for the Minister responsible for Labour, and they are concerning the issue of pay transparency legislation. Mr. Speaker, the province of Ontario was the first in the country to pass pay transparency legislation in 2018. Mr. Speaker, the intent of this legislation is to increase transparency in hiring processes and give women more information when negotiating compensation that is equal to their male peers, as well as require all publicly advertised job postings to include a salary range. As the Minister will be aware, a number of other Canadian jurisdictions have passed or are considering passing legislation concerning pay transparency. Mr. Speaker, I would like to state for the record that I would support the introduction of pay transparency legislation in Nunavut, as it would help to contribute to achieving employment equity goals in both the public and the private sectors. I'd like to ask, can the Minister confirm when he will be introducing pay transparency legislation in this House? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Minister responsible for Labour, Mr. Samailak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank the member for his question. At this time, the Pay Transparency Act is not on our list, but I do believe it's also important as well. It should be equal pay. I agree with that. It's important. Sorry. It's not on our list right now, but we'll be willing to look into it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For supplementary, Mr. Lightstone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I truly appreciate the Minister's comments and his agreement that this is an important matter. Mr. Speaker, since learning of pay transparency legislation, I've been paying closer attention to job advertisements that have been released throughout Nunavut, and I was surprised to see the amount of job advertisements that do not actually include salary ranges. So I'd like to ask the Minister to, if he'd be able to make a commitment to have his department begin work in developing proposed pay transparency legislation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister responsible for Labour, Mr. Samailak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank the member again for his question. Yes, we could definitely look into it. We can look at what the other jurisdictions in Canada are doing as well, so that we can come in line with what the rest of the country is doing as well, so that we're not going way to the right or way to the left. It should be pretty much in general, in my opinion. Should be equal pay. I agree. So I want to make sure we look at what other jurisdictions are doing as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Second and final supplementary, Mr. Lightstone.
Thank you, Ms. Appreciate the Minister's comments. Although there is no specific Nunavut-related gender equity pay scales. However, Stats Canada, as recently as 2021, has indicated that women earn on average 89 cents for every dollar that a male earns in an equivalent position. And just for the record, the government of Ontario, the province of Ontario, and the province of PEI have passed pay equity legislation, and the provinces of Manitoba and BC are also currently reviewing that type of legislation. Mr. Speaker, as the Minister is aware, he meets annually with his federal counterparts. I'd like to ask if this issue of pay equity legislation has come up during those discussions and those meetings, and if not, if the Minister would commit to bringing it up. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister responsible for Labour, Mr. Samailak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can confirm it has been brought up at federal, provincial, territorial counterparts. and we do continue to work on it. We will continue to work on it with our counterparts across the country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All questions.